The message came at 11:51 p.m. I was in my apartment, looking over a spreadsheet, when my phone lit up on the desk. It was from my mother. Linda, just one line. Your father and I have discussed it. We've agreed. You're no longer part of this family. I stared at the words. They didn't seem real. It felt clinical. An execution. Before I could even process the shock, a second notification popped up. My sister, Kayla, had hearted the message. That was it. The final cut. An instant. Cold. And absolute betrayal. I didn't cry. I didn't text back why. I didn't even feel anger. It was a strange, cold clarity. Like a window that had just been wiped clean. I felt nothing. The emotional part of my brain just switched off. The logical part took over. I sat there for a minute, watching the clock on my laptop. 11:53 p.m. My mother's text wasn't an emotional outburst. It was a financial decision. They had calculated that I was no longer a necessary part of the family's balance sheet. So, I decided to show them what that balance sheet actually looked like. I opened my laptop. I logged into the joint bank account, the one I funded. The one they used as their personal expense account. First, I went to the automatic payments. The mortgage for the house my name wasn't on the deed, but my money paid for it every month. I clicked cancel. A little box popped up. Are you sure? I clicked confirm. Next, the quarterly property taxes. That was a big one. Canceled. The utilities, the electricity, the water, the gas that kept the house warm. Canceled. 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 The family phone plan. 5 lines. All paid by me. I logged into the provider's website, separated my number onto its own individual plan, and then canceled the other 4. The car insurance for my father's truck and my mother's SUV, canceled. The streaming services, the cable bundle, canceled. Canceled. And then, the big one, I opened the university payment portal. My sister Kayla's final year of college, $18,000 a year. And the spring semester payment was due next week. I canceled the scheduled transfer. Click. I looked at the clock. It was 12:03 a.m. It took me 12 minutes to dismantle the financial scaffolding that had been holding their lives together for the last 5 years. You have to understand, this wasn't a tantrum. This was an audit. I wasn't just their daughter, I was their silent investor. It all started 5 years ago. I had just landed my first real job in tech, and I was finally making good money. I got a call from my father. Robert. His voice was shaky. He'd lost his job. They were behind on the mortgage. And the house was on the verge of foreclosure. The bank was threatening a sale. I drove home that weekend. My mother, Linda, was at the kitchen table, her head in her hands. We're going to lose everything, she whispered. Everything we've built? I looked around at the house I grew up in, and I did what I always did. I fixed it. I went to my own bank and pulled my entire savings, $20,000 to pay the property tax arrears and stop the sale. That $20,000 was just the beginning. That night, we had a family meeting at the kitchen table. My father, looking ashamed, couldn't meet my eyes. My mother, Linda, did the talking. Sophia, this is a loan, she said, her voice firm, like she was closing a business deal. We'll treat this as you building equity in the house. When we eventually sell it, you'll be paid back with interest. You're part of this family. and we all have to pull our weight. I nodded. It sounded fair. It sounded responsible. I was 23, and I believed them. So, I started pulling the weight for all of them. First, it was just the mortgage. Then, 3 months later, my father's unemployment ran out. Just until I get back on my feet, he said. So I took over the utilities, then the car insurance, then the property taxes became a permanent yearly payment from my account. For 5 years, I was the silent investor. I was the financial engine running in the basement while they lived their lives upstairs. I kept meticulous track of it all in a spreadsheet. The total, not including that first $20,000, was climbing past $150,000. And that didn't even include Kayla, my sister. Kayla is 6 years younger than me. And in our family, she was the dreamer. I was the doer. That was the agreement. This is what's called the trap of the assigned role. In some families, children are given jobs. I was given the job of the technician. I was the responsible one. The clever one, the one who was good with numbers, the one who could figure it out. Kayla was the prodigy. She was the creative one, the one with so much potential, the one who needed to be protected from the harsh realities of the world. My parents didn't see this as exploitation. They saw it as balance. They needed me to be the bank so they could feel like successful, supportive parents to their dreamer. My reliability wasn't a virtue to them. It was a resource. It was the excuse they used to drain me. So, when Kayla wanted to go to a private arts college, $18,000 a year, it wasn't a question. It was my responsibility. She's not like you. Sophia, my mother explained. She can't work 3 jobs and study. It would crush her spirit. You're strong. You can handle it. So I handled it. I paid her tuition for 3 straight years. That verbal equity agreement wasn't a contract. It was a cage. And that night, at 11:51 p.m., they didn't just let me out. They threw me out. And they forgot I was the one holding the key. He slept for 8 hours. I woke up to silence. I had already switched my phone number to a new plan. And for the first time in my adult life, I woke up without a text from my mother asking for something, or a reminder from my bank that a large payment was pending. Around 9 a.m., the first message came through on my laptop. It was from Kayla. What the fuck, my phone is off? You're overreacting. Mom was just upset. Turn it back on. I read the message. Overreacting. It was so predictable. I closed the chat window. An hour later, a new voicemail icon appeared. It was my mother. I put the phone on speaker. Her voice wasn't sad or apologetic. It was furious. I don't know what game you're playing. Sophia. She snapped. But you've created a mess. The university just called. The tuition payment bounced. The mortgage company called. You need to call us and fix this immediately. I listened to it twice. She didn't say, "What's wrong?" She didn't say, "We're sorry." She said, "You've created a mess." That's when I understood. They weren't shocked that they had betrayed me. They were just shocked that I was no longer playing my part. I didn't reply. I just went about my day. By noon, my mother escalated. She went public. She posted on Facebook a long, vague paragraph about how she had sacrificed everything for her children. It ended with, "It's a sad day when children forget the parents who gave them everything." All her friends chimed in. "You're such a good mom." Linda, praying for you. Some kids are just so ungrateful. I read the post, and I didn't feel angry anymore. I just felt done. The last little bit of guilt I had, the fear that I was the one overreacting, just evaporated. She had just given me all the justification I would ever need. This wasn't a family drama anymore. This was a business dispute. I picked up my phone and called Julia. Julia and I had been in the college debate club together. I was the researcher. She was the closer. Now, she was one of the sharpest family law attorneys in the state. Sophia, she said. Her voice, all business. It's been a while. What's wrong? I laid it out. Not with emotion, but with facts. I told her about the verbal agreement, the 5 years of mortgage and tax payments, the 3 years of Kayla's tuition, the spreadsheet, the receipts, the total amount, which was now well over $150,000. And I told her about the 11:51 p.m. text. There was a long silence on her end. Finally, she said, "This is a formal repayment demand." Sophia, they defaulted on a verbal contract. They can't just kick you out and keep the equity you've built? I asked her, "Are you sure it was a verbal agreement?" Her voice turned cold. Sophia, I specialize in financial partitions, but I take these cases because I watch my own aunt get drained dry by her family. They called her generous until the money ran out. Then they called her difficult when she finally said no. I don't let that happen. Not on my watch. She gave me her plan. She would draft a formal demand letter. It wouldn't be emotional. It would be a legal, factual document, sent via certified mail to my parents, and a separate one to Kayla as a beneficiary of the funds. The letter would give them 30 days to contact her office and initiate a repayment plan. And if they ignore it, I asked, then? Julia said, we file the suit and take action to force the sale of the house. The 30 days passed. The certified letters were marked as received, and then nothing. Just a heavy, defiant silence. Not a single call to Julia's office. Not one email. They didn't just ignore the demand. They were counting on me to be the person I had always been. The one who fixes things. The one who barks but never bites. They thought I was bluffing. On the 31st day, Julia called me. Okay, Sophia, she said, her voice crisp. They've called our bluff? So, we're not bluffing. She told me she was preparing to file the suit. Before she did, she was doing her final due diligence, pulling every financial record tied to my parents and that house for the last 7 years. I'm building an ironclad case. She said, I don't want any surprises. She was quiet for a moment. I heard her typing. Julia, I asked. Her voice changed. It lost its lawyerly crispness and became something else, something sharp and cold. Sophia, she said slowly, this isn't just a civil suit anymore. This is criminal. My stomach dropped. What are you talking about? I was pulling all financial records. As I said, your grandmother, your mother's mom. She left you an inheritance 6 years ago. Did you know about that? What, no? I mean, I knew she passed. But my mom said she didn't have anything left. That it all went to medical bills. It was a whole thing. I could hear Julia take a deep breath. Sophia. She left you $40,000. It was to be held in trust by your parents until you turned 25. I was 28. I never saw that. I whispered. My mind was racing. I know, Julia said. Because it was deposited into a brand new savings account, opened by your parents with their names and yours on it. The day after the will was executed, and the next day, I'm looking at the bank withdrawal slip right now. Confirming inheritance withdrawal, $40,000. Cash. I couldn't speak. My blood went cold. The bank manager faxed me the signature card from the account and the withdrawal slip. Julia continued, her voice like ice. The signature on that slip is not yours, Sophia. It's not even a good forgery. It's your mother's handwriting. They didn't just take your money, Sophia. They stole it. They forged your name and stole your inheritance 6 years ago. And then they had the nerve to ask you to save their house. That was it. The kill shot. This wasn't about a bad loan. This wasn't about an ungrateful family. This was a felony. Any last, tiny, lingering ember of doubt, any microscopic trace of guilt I had, was just gone. It was replaced by a pure, surgical, and righteous calm. They weren't just my ungrateful family. They were criminals, and I was done protecting them. File it. Julia, I said, file everything. The lawsuit, once filed, was a detonation. Julia was surgical. She didn't just file for the repayment. She filed an injunction to freeze their assets pending the criminal investigation into the $40,000 forgery. The bank complied immediately. Their accounts were locked. The house, which I had stopped paying for, was now officially in foreclosure, only this time, the primary lien holder was me. It all happened very fast. The machine of justice, once it starts grinding, doesn't care about family feelings. A week later, there was a knock on my apartment door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked through the peephole, and my heart didn't stop. It just hardened. It was my mother, Linda, but it wasn't the furious, entitled mother from the voicemail. This was a different woman. Her hair was a mess. Her eyes were red and puffy, and she was wearing an old coat I hadn't seen in years. She looked small. She looked broken. I opened the door. I didn't say anything. I just stood there, blocking the entryway. She stared at me, her eyes wide with a kind of desperate panic. The anger was gone, replaced by pure, unfiltered fear. Sophia, she whispered. Her voice was raw. Sophia, please. She started to cry. Messy, ugly tears. They're talking about jail. She choked out. They're talking about charges. Your father. We're losing everything. The bank. They've frozen everything. We can't even buy groceries. I just watched her. This was the woman who, less than 2 months ago, had cut me out of the family with a text message. This was the woman who had forged my name. You have to stop this, she begged. Taking a step forward, I didn't move. Please. Sophia, this will ruin us. You're destroying your father. Do something. For your sister, this will ruin her life. For your sister, even now, even at the absolute end. I wasn't her daughter. I was just a tool to be used for Kayla's sake. The last flicker of emotion I had for her just extinguished. I looked at her, my face calm and cold. This wasn't a family drama. This was a transaction that had reached its conclusion, I turned from the door, walked to my desk, and picked up a single folded document. I walked back and handed it to her. She looked at it, confused. What? What is this? It's a copy of the eviction notice, I said. My voice was quiet. It didn't shake. You asked me to do something. I already did. Her face crumpled. She looked from the paper back to me, her mouth opening and closing. But no sounds came out. Goodbye, Mom, I said, and I quietly closed the door. The case didn't go to a dramatic trial. It collapsed in on itself, faced with undeniable evidence of criminal forgery. My parents pleaded out. The deal Julia structured was cold and efficient. They would avoid jail time. In exchange, they signed over the house and all proceeds from its forced sale to me to cover the $40,000 they stole, the $150,000 I had paid, and all of Julia's legal fees. When the house was sold at auction, there was almost nothing left for them. I heard from a distant relative that they had moved into a small rental apartment 2 towns over. Kayla, with her tuition suddenly cut off, had dropped out of her private college. The Bank of Sofia was closed permanently. A few weeks later, I was in my apartment. My phone buzzed with a new email. It was from my bank. Wire transfer successful. I logged in. I saw the number. It was a staggering amount of money. But it wasn't a windfall. It wasn't a prize. It was just a refund. It was the closing of a very bad, very long investment. I opened my laptop. I found the old file I had kept for 5 years. The spreadsheet, the one where I had obsessively tracked every dollar, every utility bill, every tuition payment. I looked at the final sum at the bottom. The total cost of trying to buy a family's love. I stared at that number for a long time. Then, I moved my cursor, and I hit delete. Walking away from your family isn't a simple victory. It's not clean. There's a grief that comes with it, not for the family you left, but for the one you deserved, but never got. You realize you are grieving a ghost. But letting go of a toxic bloodline isn't an act of destruction. It's an act of self-creation. It's the moment you stop letting them write your story and you finally pick up the pen yourself. It's a painful, necessary, and brave amputation. It's the only way to stop the poison from spreading. That night, for the first time in years, I slept through till morning. No guilt, no noise, just quiet. Sometimes, the only way to win is to stop playing. If this story resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to choose yourself.